Good morning and welcome to the first webinar of the new year, Trade Finance Resources in Arizona. This presentation is brought to you by the Arizona MBDA Export Center, operated by the National Center for American Indian Enterprise Development. A couple of logistics before we begin. You have all been muted by GoToWebinar, and if you look at the bottom of the screen, you will see the Questions tab. Please type your questions and we will address it at the most appropriate time. Now that we have those details behind us, I would like to take a moment to introduce all our presenters for the day. Our first speaker is Kevin O'Shea. Kevin O'Shea is the Senior Vice President for International Trade at the Arizona Commerce Authority. In this capacity, he manages and delivers a suite of export assistance programs for Arizona companies to help them grow their revenues, diversify their buyer base, and create more jobs by selling their products and services to customers outside of the USA. He also oversees and manages ACA's three trade offices and teams in Mexico City, Chihuahua, and Guanajuato, its trade office and team in Tel Aviv, Israel, and its trade office and team in Germany. Kevin has over 30 years of experience in the international trade arena, including his work at ACA, and prior to that, an International Commercial Law Reform Institute, and before that, as a lawyer with a large international law firm in San Francisco. He holds an undergraduate degree in cultural anthropology from Brown University and a law degree from UC Berkeley. Our second speaker is Aérek Stephens, an Export Finance Manager for the Export-Import Bank of the United States, Regional Export Promotion Program, REP. The REP program brings state, county, local, and nonprofit economic development entities together with EXIM in an alliance designed to expand U.S. export sales. Membership has grown from 36 members to 61 members since its relaunch in August of 2016. We currently have members in 38 states and 2 U.S. territories. Referrals from REP members have accounted for over $20 million in small business authorizations for EXIM. He is also a part of EXIM Minority, Women, and Veteran-Owned Business Division. They work closely with other government agencies and business development associations that have a minority, women, veteran, international trade focus to help spread the word about EXIM financing and create opportunities for export-ready U.S. businesses. Aérek represents EXIM Bank as an ex officio member of NASBITE International Board of Governors. Mr. Stephens is a graduate of Elizabeth City State University and has more than 20 years of banking experience. He has held leadership positions in project management, relationship management, and lending and collections. Following Mr. Stephens is Sandra Donzella. Sandra Donzella is the Deputy Managing Director of the Western Regional Office of the Export-Import Bank of the United States. In her role, she is responsible for business development and outreach to exporters, lenders, and partner organizations in the western region of the country. Sandra joined EXIM Bank in 2001 after spending nearly a decade in international banking, where she specialized in trade finance and directly worked with EXIM's programs. She has also been involved in temporary assignments at EXIM's Bank Trade Credit Insurance Division as a portfolio manager and underwriter for the Western region. Sandra is based in San Diego at the offices of the U.S. Commercial Service. She was born in Chile, moved to the United States in 1980, and became a U.S. citizen in 1992. She received a BA degree in economics from the University of Connecticut in 1991. Without further ado, Kevin, take it away.
Thank you very much, and good morning to some of you, and good afternoon to the others. Very delighted to be participating. Our state economic development office, which I work for, enjoys a very close and productive collaboration with the MBDA and EXIM. We also enjoy a very close and productive collaboration with some other federal entities, including the U.S. Small Business Administration and the U.S. Department of Commerce Commercial Service. And those close collaborations in Arizona between the state and those federal entities really is something that small companies and medium companies in Arizona greatly benefit from. So I'm happy to be presenting today. And I'm going to be speaking primarily about our STEP program, which is the Arizona State Trade Expansion Program. And great, thank you very much. This is a program funded by the U.S. Small Business Administration, administered by the U.S. Small Business Administration. And each state that has a STEP program, and most states do have a STEP program, provide a matching fund amount. So it's a genuine federal state partnership, all for the benefit of small businesses to help them grow their sales internationally. There's some basic eligibility requirements in Arizona for the STEP program. Company must be obviously an Arizona company, must be a small business. The company must be in business for at least a year. So it's really not a program for a startup. We want to see companies that have had some sales success domestically and are now ready to expand into international markets. If the company sells a product, the product must be at least 51% U.S. content. That is a requirement imposed by the federal government. And the company must have access to sufficient resources to bear the cost of trade. This goes a bit back to the idea that a company would not be a startup, but rather a company that's on solid footing, generating revenue, having sales. Let me talk a little bit about the justification, I think, for some of those requirements. When a small business exports, many very important factors, but a very, very important factor is consumers outside the U.S. really respect U.S. products, and they respect U.S. consumers. And so one of the things a consumer outside the U.S. really wants to know is, are folks in the USA buying that product? That gives that product extra credibility, extra allure, and cachet. So again, important for companies, for the most part, to be selling products in the U.S. Before they make the decision to expand into international markets. And there are two types of companies that are in the STEP program that I want to speak about. And one of those is companies who export a product or manufacture a product or create a product. So that's something that's very tangible. It fits in a box or it ships on a pallet. And I'd say about well over 90% of the companies that are in our STEP program, and we've had several hundred companies go through our STEP program over the last 10 years, over 90% of those companies are exporting a product. It's also important to understand that companies can also export a service, not just a product. Examples of exporting a service, I'll speak on a non-small business example. Every time a university, and most universities are not small businesses given their size, but every time a university enrolls a student from outside the USA, we call that a foreign student, and that student pays tuition, that is considered a service export. The university is exporting its educational services to a customer outside the USA. Every time an architect bids on a design proposal or a design project outside the US, and if that US architect or Arizona architect is awarded that contract, that is a service export. The architect is not shipping a product, architect is not building the building, but the architect is designing that building. So that is an export of their design services. Every time the Elite Athlete Training Center in North Phoenix trains a non-US athlete, whether that's an Olympic team from another country, a soccer team from another country, every time that they do that, with a international customer, they're exporting their training services. So both product exporters and service exporters are considered eligible for the program and welcomed in the program. In Arizona, we don't treat this program as a competition among companies. We treat it as an opportunity to serve as many companies as we can. Therefore, we enroll companies on a rolling admission basis. We do not set a time period of 2 weeks or a month for companies to submit a proposal and then to be judged against other companies. Rather, during the lifetime of a program, during the time that there is still funding available under a program, we will enroll a company. And then during the lifetime of a program, which typically runs 1 to 2 years, an edition of the program typically runs 1 to 2 years, the company will select program eligible activities that they want to undertake and for which there is a level of financial assistance available under the program. So we can go to the next slide, please. And here are some of the initiatives that our companies are undertaking as part of our STEP program. Far and away, the greatest utilization of our program is in the area of international trade expos and trade shows. So this aspect of our program really helps small businesses literally get into market, get on a plane, attend an international trade expo in their industry sector. We do that as part of a Arizona delegation. We will lead and organize those delegations and provide on the preparation assistance, but also on the ground assistance at the expo to the cohort of Arizona STEP companies that are participating. We do these in a wide variety of industry sectors. We've done them in aerospace, defense and security, healthcare technology, mining, autonomous vehicles, skincare, natural products, just a wide range of industry sectors. We also lead international trade missions where we'll bring a group of companies, sometimes in a single industry sector, sometimes in multiple industry sectors, into market. Each company that goes on the mission with us has its own pre-vetted, pre-arranged, pre-scheduled set of meetings. The Arizona STEP company meeting with potential sales channel partners or potential buyers that they want to meet with, and those potential sales channel partners and potential buyers have signaled to us that they would be willing and interested in meeting with the Arizona company if the Arizona company comes into market. During the COVID situation era, we've been doing several virtual B2B matchmaking events that have replaced the international trade missions. We are beginning to do international trade expos live versions once again. We have done approximately a half a dozen since August of 2021, and I am at one right now as we speak in San Francisco with a group of Arizona STEP companies. U.S. commercial service export assistance services. If your small business is interested in pursuing a particular market, let's just say, for example, Japan, and you want someone to do market research for you, give you a sense, is my product or service, and does it have a market in Japan? What's my competition in Japan? Is my price point competitive? Are there sales channel partners that I might be able to identify? The U.S. Commercial Service, which is the export assistance arm of the U.S. Department of Commerce, can perform those services. We've had companies in our program translate and localize their website content from English into a non-English language. We have a variety of export education programs, export compliance training, and also we run an export boot camp for primarily manufacturers who are relatively new to export. All of these items that I've just listed include a financial aspect, a financial assistance aspect. So concretely, in the example of the international trade shows and trade expos, which are very expensive for an individual small business to undertake, we purchase with our STEP funds the booth space, booth furnishings, booth graphics, and registration fees for the AZ STEP companies that we bring to an international trade expo. And the Arizona STEP company, they are responsible for a portion of their travel costs. We're also able to assist with a portion of the travel costs. So the idea there is to make it as affordable as possible while still having the company have a level of financial commitment to get into market. And it's at these trade expos and trade shows that one can often meet a potential sales channel partner. Maybe you can make a selected distributor or a rep through an international trade expo. It's also the case where sales can be made, not necessarily immediately, but certainly initial steps in that direction. So that is how we run our STEP program in Arizona. We have a current edition of STEP that runs through September of this year. So that will be up and running for an additional 8 months. For companies on this webinar that meet those eligibility requirements and are interested in this program, I encourage you to reach out to me. I think my email was provided on the contact information sheet. Be very happy to speak with you about the program and send you the enrollment forms. Takes about 25 minutes to enroll, to fill out the forms. There's no enrollment fee. I also can speak with you about a few other export assistance programs that we have in addition to AZ STEP. As I've said, we've had several hundred companies go through this program, and companies from major urban areas, rural Arizona, as far north as Flagstaff, as far south as Nogales. So we have a real commitment here in Arizona to serve our small businesses and to serve small businesses that are traditionally underrepresented, and look forward to being of further assistance to Arizona small businesses through this program and through others. With that, I think I can wrap up my presentation and appreciate your being a part of this. Here are some examples of the kinds of things our companies are selling. I had talked to you a bit about the products, the mix of products and services. I think if one takes a look at this list of products, primarily on this one, I believe, you'll get a sense that that the types of products that Arizona small companies are exporting is quite interesting, exciting, and diverse. So it can be anywhere from, as you see at the top, precision guided airdrop systems. It could be the Bronze Sculpture Company in Prescott Valley, a musical instrument company in Patagonia, skincare product company in Chandler, a natural non-sugar sweetener company in Gilbert, an outdoor perimeter security system company in Tempe. So as you can see, we are industry agnostic in the STEP program. I do encourage you to be motivated and inspired by that diverse list of products to consider. I encourage you to consider the possibility of your products and services also being good fits for the Arizona STEP company, for the Arizona STEP program, I'm sorry. And there is my contact information. Please do feel free to drop me an email. We can set up a phone call or a Zoom or a meetings, virtual conversations, and I look forward to being of assistance to you.
Thank you, Kevin, for your presentation. Now I'd like to welcome Sandra and Aérek to present for EXIM.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today with one of the newest export centers under the MBDA umbrella. As before is introduced, my name is Aérek Stephens. I'm an Export Finance Manager with EXIM Bank. Many of you might not know who EXIM is, so let's give a little background on how we came to be EXIM Bank and how we can assist you as an exporter or new to exporting. Next slide, please. Now, EXIM is an independent federal agency of the United States. Now, what is an independent federal agency of the United States? Relatively, it's an agency that works independently amongst the federal agencies where we're not connected with, Department of Commerce or SBA. Now, what EXIM does is we provide support and promote American jobs by providing export credit insurance for the sale of U.S. goods and services to international buyers. Now, we level that playing field because there's a number of EXIMs across the United States, or across the world, shall I say. They're called actually ECAs, export credit agencies. Most countries have an export credit agency, which allows them to assist their actual companies within their country to compete against the worldwide industry of trade, providing them support, whether it be export credit insurance or working capital. That's the goal of EXIM. We've been around since 1934. That's correct, 1934. A lot of people across the United States haven't even heard our name before. And we call ourselves one of the best kept secrets in the United States in terms of helping the actual exporters. But we're here and we're here to help you. Now, we're headquartered in Washington, D.C. We're a relatively small agency with only about 400 actual individuals who work for EXIM across the United States. Now, in order for us to do that, we have to have regional offices and partners across the United States, whether it be our regional offices located in California, where Sandra actually sits, or our regional offices located in Georgia, where we have another regional director that sits. Now, we have 12 of these across the United States, which are there for you. They usually sit in what we call centers where you also have the SBA and commercial services, known as USIACs. So we basically make sure we are able to help people across the United States. And we partner with a number of agencies as well. Now, the goal and mission of EXIM Bank is to create and sustain jobs by increasing U.S. export sales. How do we do that? We make sure you get paid by providing that export credit insurance, which Sandra will talk about in more detail a little bit later. Now, in the introduction, they told you that I'm basically a part of the Regional Export Promotion Program. I run that. We'll talk about that. But I want to talk about minority and women-owned business in the connection with the MBDA. Now, EXIM's Minority and Women-Owned Division is the mandated charter within the bank that focuses on educating and assisting small businesses owners who are minority-owned, veteran-owned, rural-owned, anything you consider underserved businesses. We're here to serve them. Now, we've established long-standing relationships with organizations that have a minority trade focus, dedicated to making sure we educate and raise awareness about export opportunities. Kevin made a very good point earlier about the export credit, the actual STEP grant that Arizona has available. That is one of the most underutilized programs across the United States. Making sure we give awareness of that particular program. Programs and grants and things of that nature that might be available within your local areas. Also the assistance, making sure you have that person you can talk to about exporting to report you in the right direction. Now, our team engages businesses that are exporting right now or once interested in exporting. Now, we do that in a couple of different ways. Normally, we're out at different events, trade shows, but with our current situations, shall we say, in the United States, we've been doing a lot of webinars. And our webinars, as of date of last year, we did 87 webinars. I know it seems like a lot, but our webinars are great. We're very interactive. We utilize a lot of our current EXIM customers, which talk about their experiences doing exporting. which brings to light a lot of situations where you can speak to yourself as an exporter, how you can get to that next level. Now, we usually average around 200 people registered in these events, so they're very well attended. And normally we get a number of actual resources or referrals where we actually talk to customers, find out what's going, how we can help them. And one of the greatest ways we're doing that is partnering, especially partnering with the MBDA. We've been partnering with the MBDA for a number of years. We formalized that back in 2020 when we signed a memorandum of understanding, which basically states that EXIM and the MBDA will work collaboratively together to make sure we give the information and the education necessary for minority and women-owned businesses. Now, we closely work right now with our MBDA export centers in Miami, as well as the one we have located in San Antonio. They've been working for us for years. We recently brought on the one in Houston, and we're looking forward to working just as quickly with the one here located in Arizona. Now, as we've talked about MBDA and we've talked about EXIM and what we're available, what I want to make sure we talk about as we go forward is why you should be exporting as a minority-owned business. There's 3 important reasons I want you to make sure you keep in mind as Sandra starts to explain how you can export and utilize a resource to export. You have access to more consumers if you export. Also, diversifying your market, making sure you have all your apples in one basket. And thirdly, minority-owned businesses are uniquely qualified to export and connect to overseas through different cultures. So as we talk about exporting today, keep in mind those 3 particular areas that you can actually make sure that you're ready to export. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to my colleague, Sandra. And she'll tell you a little bit more about EXIM. We can go ahead and advance those slides to the 4th slide.
Okay, thank you, Aérek. Thanks for being here, and many thanks as well to Shelby and Sadie at the MBDA for inviting us to participate in today's event. We're delighted to be here and look forward to the opportunity to hopefully working with all of you who are calling in today. So Aérek just gave you a basic overview of Export-Import Bank of the United States, or EXIM as we call ourselves. What I'm going to do is just give you the basics about the solutions that we provide. There's really 3 primary products that EXIM Bank offers, depending on your needs and really where you are on your export journey. If you are being approached by your international customers to offer credit terms, meaning you ship the product and you give them a certain number of days or months to pay you, that would expose yourself to risk, the risk of non-payment. Or perhaps you're already doing so. Perhaps you're already exporting and already made a decision to offer credit, likely for competitive purposes. And I'll get into that momentarily. So if you're exporting on credit terms, our solution would be the Export Credit Insurance Program, which is risk protection in the event of non-payment by the foreign buyer. On the other hand, if you happen to need financing to be able to purchase or manufacture the items that will be exporting, then our solution is the Working Capital Guarantee product. This is not a direct loan from EXIM Bank. It's a program where our role is that of a guarantor, co-signing, if you will, on your behalf as the seller, the exporter, to facilitate your ability to get additional financing from a bank. And third, if you happen to be engaged in exporting capital equipment, for example, mining, medical, agricultural equipment, turbines, anything that will be classified as a capital equipment, and you're selling to customers in developing countries or emerging markets where access to a term loan is more difficult to come by, then our solution would be the buyer financing, the medium or long-term buyer financing products of EXIM Bank. These are all risk mitigating programs where our role is to either reduce your risk if you need it, for example, under the insurance program, or the risk of the lender to encourage the banking sector to have more flexibility financing exports. And the idea is to really turn these export opportunities into actual real sales. Of the 3 programs, insurance is by far our most demanded program by small businesses. And it accounts, on average, or generally would account for over 70 or even over 75% of the transaction volume that EXIM Bank processes generally on a given year. So that's really what we're going to focus on today. Next slide, please. So let's talk a little bit more about insurance. What it is, it's essentially risk protection. It's in simple terms, it has to be an export sale between you, the seller, the exporter, and a buyer in another country, a foreign buyer. And this is designed to address the credit needs of your customers when they're asking you to give them some level of flexibility on the payment terms. What we typically see at EXIM Bank are applications from exporters like you that are seeking cover on repayment terms that typically range between 30 or 60 days, but we can go longer. If you happen to be exporting on 100% cash in advance, then you don't really have a need for this program yet because there's nothing to insure, there's no risk, although you may not be very competitive, and I'll explain that momentarily. So again, insurance is risk protection when you offer internationally credit terms. And we have, excuse me, and we have various options available. If you just have one buyer to insure, then we would talk about the single buyer program, which, as the name implies, is buyer specific. And there, EXIM will cover 90% of your invoiced amount. If, on the other hand, you have various buyers or multiple buyers, and you want the flexibility of one policy covering all or most of them or a portion of your portfolio, then we will talk to you about our multi-buyer options. We offer 3, 2 of which are reserved for small businesses only. And their cover is a little bit higher, 95%. So in other words, by considerably minimizing the risk, either 90 or 95%, so if your buyer, say it's a $100,000 sale, you've given a buyer in Brazil 2 months to pay you, and the due date comes and go and they haven't paid, you can file a claim to EXIM Bank and we would pay you on a $100,000 sale, either $90,000 or $95,000, depending on which option you had decided to pursue. And we have a very brief video that really puts this in better perspective, so please go ahead and play it.
And I need to grow my foreign sales so I can take part in the global economy. I have potential customers overseas, but they want to buy on credit terms rather than pay cash in advance. That's risky for me. I'm worried about selling on credit and not getting paid. But if I refuse, I lose sales, miss out on global opportunities, and give my competitors an edge.
Kate represents thousands of small business owners with similar concerns. Luckily, EXIM, the Export-Import Bank, has a solution: export credit insurance for foreign receivables. It's an insurance policy, just like the one you have on your house or car. And here's how it works. Kate purchases export credit insurance. When she sells her product to a foreign buyer on credit, she pays EXIM a premium when she ships her product. If her buyer doesn't pay, she files a claim, and EXIM pays her up to 95% of the amount she's owed. And export credit insurance does more than just reduce risk. Kate can also get more attractive financing from her bank by borrowing against her insured receivables.
Now I have peace of mind and the cash flow I need to grow a competitive business overseas.
Okay, next slide, please. Okay. So hopefully that gives you a basic understanding of what we're talking about when it comes to EXIM's primary program for small businesses, which is the export credit insurance product. In terms of the benefits, the primary benefit is really risk protection, right? If the buyer doesn't pay, you file a claim to EXIM and we will pay you. And we cover a variety of different risks, which I'll cover momentarily. So it's really non-payment due to commercial or political reasons. And this can be a very powerful sales tool, because when you are asked to extend credit, often many exporters, of course, ideally want to be prepaid, but that can make you uncompetitive. And many buyers abroad, especially in this environment with COVID, the challenges of supply chain, where it's taking a lot longer for them to receive the product. Increasingly, what we're seeing is buyers from abroad are demanding flexibility on the payment terms. And if you're not willing to offer it, it could be that they go somewhere else to get it. And like Aérek's mentioned, there's over 100 export credit agencies worldwide. So if you happen to be competing with a foreign vendor, that's it could be that that vendor ends up getting the sale based on the fact that they are willing to offer credit internationally. And it doesn't have to be on the entire sales amount. It could be on a portion. Maybe you tell the customer, okay, if you give me a certain percentage as a down payment, on the balance, I'm willing to meet you halfway and offer you the credit terms that you need for us to do business. So that's really the spirit of the program, to help you compete and attract more buyers. And it's really what's going to help you grow your business. And we have flexibility to ensure extended repayment terms. I mentioned earlier, the majority of the applications we receive are from exporters asking us to ensure terms typically ranging between 30 to 60 days, but we can go longer, and we have. So if you need to, for competitive purposes, maybe you need to offer someone 90 days or 4 months, we can do that. Consumables, so just about any items, can go up to 6 months. Or if you export equipment under the short-term insurance product, we can go up to 1 year. Or if you export bulk commodities, we can also consider a longer term of up to 1 year. And as the video mentioned, in addition to risk protection and the ability to use it as a sales tool to compete, you can also use insurance to maximize your cash flow, to maximize your borrowing base. And that's because all of the insurance policies that EXIM offers can be assigned to a financial institution so that you can include them in your borrowing base. They become part of the collateral base and you can borrow against it. So for instance, if you have a $100,000 sale to a buyer in the UK, maybe it puts a dent on your cash flow waiting 2 months to get the payment. If you're working with a bank that has decided to take an assignment of EXIM's insurance proceeds and is willing to finance your foreign receivables, you could borrow $90,000 fairly quickly after shipment versus having to wait the 2 months for the payment to come in. So that's how this program can also be used for financing purposes to help the exporter maximize cash flow. In fact, some exporters come to us for that reason, because their lender is requiring insurance if they want financing on their foreign accounts receivables. Next slide, please. Now, in terms of what we cover, there's a wide range of different reasons why buyers may ultimately fail to make payment. Under the commercial risk category, there we cover buyer insolvency or bankruptcy, or situations of protracted default. What does that really mean? That means the buyer remains in business, but they're not paying. And you may or may not even know why. It could be due to a variety of reasons. Perhaps the buyer gets purchased by another company that doesn't pay their debt. Or it could be that God forbid, there's a natural disaster, tsunami, an earthquake, wipes out the buyer's operations, and that's why they don't pay. Then EXIM would pay under the commercial loss category. Or perhaps there's a downturn in the economy, a devaluation of the buyer's of the local currency in the buyer's country. Those are the types of risks that would be covered. And then on the political risk front, it's the more obvious types of risks, such as civil unrest, riots, war, revolution, or any government action that would prevent the buyer from making payment, such as, for example, foreign exchange restrictions. So if your invoices are denominated in US dollars and the buyer cannot send dollars out of the country due to the imposition of a government action, then that will be covered under political risk cover. There's one thing, however, that we don't cover, and that is disputes. So if you ship red, the buyer wanted white, we just don't have the resources to judge who's wrong or right in a dispute situation. No one really does. EXIM Bank nor the private sector insurance companies are able to cover that. So it's strictly commercial and political risk. Next slide, please. And in terms of eligibility, there's a lot of synergies between what we require and what is required by the STEP grant, actually. So like Kevin mentioned, EXIM Bank also is really not the ideal solution for early stage businesses. So if you only have a history, say, of 6 months, it's going to be too early for you to come to EXIM Bank and for us to be a resource to you at this time. We do want to see a track record under the insurance program. The criteria is that the exporter have a minimum 3-year revenue producing, meaning producing sales of 3 years. Although having said that, there is a lot of flexibility. If you have at least 1 full year and you already have done maybe a couple of export sales under your belt and you're receiving purchase orders from abroad, then usually our insurance division has a lot of flexibility to be able to approve an insurance policy, especially if the management or the owners of the business have prior experience in the industry and in exporting. You also need to be registered with Dun & Bradstreet, have a DUNS number, and the ability to be able to disclose some financial information. And in some cases, depending on the policy you're pursuing, the company's financial statements would be required. Now, because as Aérek you may remember, he mentioned that the main reason why EXIM exists is really to support U.S. jobs. For that reason, we're bound by foreign content restrictions. So for us to engage, the export items do need to be made in the U.S. They may have foreign components or part, but we require, just like the STEP grant eligibility requires, at least over 50% U.S. content. So we should say at least 51%. And when we say U.S. content, what we really mean is measured at cost. So the cost of the components, the parts, and the U.S. labor. Usually labor will bring it up substantially. And if you take into account all the costs, and if over 50% of the cost represents U.S. cost, then EXIM can insure either 90 or 95% of the entire invoiced amount, which will include the markup. But to measure cost is exclusive of markup, but inclusive of U.S. labor. And then another important consideration is the buyer's country. We're open all over the world in over 180 countries, but in some markets, we may have restrictions, and in other countries, we may be closed due to political reasons. You probably can imagine already, North Korea, Iran, etc. So we do have a listing of all the countries in the world. It's in alphabetical order, and it tells you what our position is in a given country. Next slide, please. And here you have both Aérek and my contact information. As Shelby mentioned earlier, I'm a member of the Western Regional Office of EXIM Bank. We have a network of field offices to make ourselves more available to the exporting community and more accessible. So you can feel free to contact either Aérek or myself anytime, and we'll be happy to work with you and provide guidance. So thank you.
Thank you, Kevin, Sandra, and Aérek for your presentations. We will begin our Q&A session now. Please type your questions in the questions box and we will answer them here. So our first question is for EXIM, so Sandra or Aérek. If a small business with less than 10 employees just started exporting a US made product with a sales volume of 75K a year, are they too small for EXIM?
If I may, I can take that. No, especially if you need the insurance, no transaction is too small for EXIM Bank. Having said that, the EXIM Bank does charge a premium and to basically provide this insurance coverage. We're not out to make money as a federal agency. Our mission is to support U.S. exports. But sometimes the premium, depending on the policy you're interested in pursuing, can be cost prohibitive for the exporter. But the general answer is no. And sometimes you can pass that cost of the premium to the buyer in the invoice price in exchange for giving them the flexibility on the payment terms. So if you have a buyer that's willing to cover the premium, then it shouldn't be an issue. And our premiums really, they're not that expensive. It's more or less half of 1%, depending on which insurance option you're interested in pursuing. It's really the single buyer that can be higher in terms of the cost, because there the premium will vary depending on the buyer's country, as well as the length of the credit terms. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you, Sandra. Our new question. I'm a service-based business marketing firm, 5 years in business. What should be my first steps when looking at exporting our services for the first time?
Well, I can take that. One thing I would look at, if you're a marketing-based business, which means you're a service-oriented business, in terms of where you're going to get your clientele from, is maybe being in contact with organizations such as U.S. Commercial Services, who might be interested in your type of marketing services that might be you're making available. So what you do is basically take a look at what you have available. Is it something that's actually exportable in terms of the content and what you do from a marketing aspect? Once you've got that in an export plan together, which export centers can help you with, then let's talk to the commercial service and find out who might be interested in those type of services from international level.
And a big thing that you're going to want to determine is what's your competition like in that non-U.S. market. For some service providers in the U.S., they might be at a competitive disadvantage internationally because their service prices that they charge may be higher than the local competition. It depends greatly on what kind of marketing services and also the country that you're looking to sell your services into. One thing that I always tell a small business, or any company for that matter, unless it's that rare unique company, you have competitors. Every competitor is going to say that, well, I do it different, or mine's the best. Again, having a good U.S. track record, a good U.S. list of marketing clients that you serve will impress a foreign buyer. And then you need to look at your pricing. And as Aérek said, there are ways that you can determine some of that market, do some of that market research without it costing you. You can retain the U.S. Commercial Service. In the case of Arizona, if you want to do that in the areas where we have our trade offices, which are in Mexico, Israel, and Germany, we can do that for you as well. But definitely be aware of what your competition might be.
Yeah.
Awesome.
If I may add, EXIM can also support exports of services, but they will need to be performed by US-based personnel. So if you're going to hire a local marketing firm in, say, Mexico to provide part of those services, that would be considered foreign content, and you still would be, over 50% of the cost it needs to be related to US-based personnel.
Can I make one comment about the EXIM Export Credit Insurance product? My experience with small businesses is that there is really not a better program for a small business looking to mitigate their risks when they're going international than that export credit insurance product. I have small businesses in Arizona that do not export without it. It is a real sort of safety blanket for them, right? And I've had Arizona companies who've stopped exporting in those periods of time where EXIM was not operational. So it's a very valuable, affordable product, and it really will enhance your competitiveness.
Excellent point.
Thank
We
you.
have very mutual clients between Kevin's organization and EXIM Bank. So like it was said earlier, we'll partner together and kind of provide a one-stop shop, and we refer you to the right resources when needed.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone.
I can take one thing. Take advantage of your resources, whether it be EXIM, Kevin, any of the other federal agencies. Make sure you utilize all the available resources to achieve that goal. If I could say one thing over and over again, is take advantage of your resources.
Yes, thank you. Our next question is for Kevin. Does the Export Bootcamp provide hybrid or remote options for business owners?
Yes, we have delivered that program both live and virtual, and we are looking at a hybrid version as well. We deliver typically 2 of those cohorts per year. They run over a period of 2 months. You're not away from your business. We work closely with you during the 2 months. We assign an export coach to your company, and your company graduates with an actual export plan where you've developed a short list of near and midterm international markets that you're going to pursue, and you identify initiatives that you're going to undertake to execute on your plan. So typically we've got 8 companies to 10 companies that go through the program at any given time. We never have competitors in the same cohort.
And is this a program non-Arizona companies can take advantage of?
Some others, not all the US states have this type of program. I'd say approximately 20 of them do. If you're interested in it in your state, drop me an email and I'll let you know who in your state might be delivering it.
Awesome, thank you. So our next question is for EXIM, so Sandra or Aérek. How does EXIM Bank determine the level of funds necessary to cover future projected claims?
Well, we have a loss reserve that we allocate on an annual basis, or CFO's office handles all of that. And when it comes to determining our ability to support an export sale, that doesn't really come so much into a factor. What we're after is reasonable reassurance of repayment. And it's more important really on those very sizable transactions involving usually mid-size or large corporations that are also coming to EXIM. EXIM, I should have probably mentioned earlier on, we are here to support US exports, right? And we do work with businesses of all sizes, small, medium, and large. Although we're very proud that the majority of our customers are small businesses that typically account for about 90% of our volume of applications that we process in a given year. But we also work with the larger transactions, sometimes in the hundreds of millions of dollars, where the focus also becomes on making sure that we're going to get reasonable reassurance of repayment, because if we take a hit, we need to have the allocated loss reserve to do so. And we also have a team of colleagues at our headquarters that handle claims and assume collection efforts, and we do try to get or be able to get repaid. In some cases, we'll even try to repossess an asset that we may have financed in the past. But that does not really come into play much with our small business program, especially the insurance. There, we're talking about often transactions under $500,000, and in many cases even under $100,000. So what we focus on is really making sure that the parties qualify, they have that track record, and that the buyer meets our credit standards, which are rather minimal. For us to qualify a buyer, say in the request for up to $100,000, we're going to need a trade reference or a credit report, one or the other. For more than that, up to $500,000, we will need both pieces of information. And for credit limit requests that exceed $500,000, we're going to need both plus the buyer's financial statements. So we do have a team of underwriters that all they do every day is assess buyers' credit worthiness. So in the front end, you can think of us in a way as your international credit department. And on the back end, if things go bad, we alleviate you from the burden of collection, and we basically are pay you the claim, and then we go after your buyer to assume a direct collection effort with them.
One thing we probably failed to mention, Sandra, I don't know if you did, I might have missed it during your presentation, is that EXIM is we're very savvy in terms of how we actually operate, in terms of making sure that everybody is covered, because this is your tax dollars at work on a daily basis. Anything EXIM does outside of operating expenses goes back to the United States Treasury. So to make sure we're good stewards of every taxpayer's funds, believe me, due diligence is done on every transaction to make sure it is a viable transaction.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. Thank you for answering all the questions. Our last is advice for small business owners looking to grow their company.
Take advantage of your resources. Attend webinars such as this. Anytime somebody has a webinar or an actual event, attend that event, gather your information, build your database of knowledge. So when you are ready to export and you have an exportable product, you have a plan actually how to export. Never take every conversation. You should take something away from when it comes from exporting, whether it be a nugget of what to do or what not to do. Take advantage of your resources and listen.
I would suggest you be strategic, disciplined, and focused. And if you're looking for some free consulting services for your small business, I would be referring you to the Small Business Development Centers, which are funded by the U.S. Small Business Administration. They can help you with a wide variety of things to help you grow your business.
And we actually have one. Oh, sorry.
Also, don't be afraid of exporting. 95% of the world's consumers reside outside of borders. So it does represent tremendous growth opportunities for small businesses. But like Kevin said, it will take discipline, a commitment, and it will take money as well. Also partnering with a team that can help you address different aspects in the exporting journey will be very key. So meaning, knowing, for example, the Incoterms that you're going to agree to sell under. So working with an experienced freight forwarder or logistics company will help you. Working with an experienced international attorney that can help draft an international distribution agreement that will protect you would also be very helpful and highly advisable. And also, working with a lender that has the appetite to get engaged in export financing, whether it's with EXIM or perhaps the programs of the Small Business Administration, which, by the way, also offers export financing solutions. And they're often the go-to when a small business is perhaps just starting on their export journey and they need they have a small borrowing requirement, maybe less than $500,000. We often refer them to the Small Business Administration. If you're a startup, inevitably financing will likely be a need. And there's also community development financial institutions that do work with startups. They have a lot more flexibility than the banks. And I'm happy to provide introductions to those as well.
Yes, thank you, Sandra and Aérek and Kevin. We do have one more question, and I think it's more of a narrative. So could you share a quick success story of a very small minority business who was able to successfully start exporting using some resources you've mentioned?
One that comes to mind and I can speak from a nationwide perspective. Sandra could probably speak more so from an Arizona and a West Coast perspective. If you've ever heard of the actual spirit called Buzz Balls, the little thing looks like a baseball. You see it actually in the store. They're one of our clients. And one of the things about that particular business, it started from a teacher. A teacher actually started this particular business. She owns the first distillery and brewery in the state of Texas as a woman. And they started small, and now you see those things across the United States as well as international. We have something called Sleep Phones, which is a headset that you can actually sleep with while you're actually going to sleep and actually push you to sleep, where it's not a big bulky set. That's another 2 businesses that I know off the top of my head that benefited from EXIM's export credit insurance, and as well as some other resources they've taken advantage of. But I'll turn it over to my colleagues.
Yeah, we have the one that comes to mind is Part Avion, which is a women-owned business in Scottsdale, Arizona, that exports aircraft parts, and they've been an insured customer of EXIM Bank for many years. We also have a really good website where we have a section of customer testimonials and also success stories. And many of them are from minority or women-owned businesses. So we will be happy to send you the link if you wish.
I've got 2 examples for you. We've got a couple of minority-owned businesses in the greater Tucson area who are selling into supply chains in Mexico. Mexico is a place where there's a great deal of advanced manufacturing in industries such as aerospace and automotive. So a couple of minority-owned businesses in Tucson are selling into those supply chains. And then we also, another example would be the woman-owned business in North Phoenix that sells mining safety equipment that is affixed to vehicles at a mine site. And they're selling throughout Latin America. They're selling in Asia. And all 3 of those companies are being assisted by the AZ STEP program.
That's amazing. Thank you, Kevin, Sandra, and Aérek for your presentations. We appreciate you all taking the time to be here. Everyone, as a reminder, we have monthly webinars, which you can register on our website. We want to take a moment to thank our operator. The National Center has been committed to economic development for Native American and Alaska Native communities for over 50 years. The National Center provides business training, procurement, and technical assistance, and now exporting. You can learn more at our website listed below. And we do host one of the largest economic development summits annually. It's called the RES 2022, and you can register at res.ncid.org. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us, and please enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.